And one of the topics I think right now is boarding, and a lot of people have been hanging on to, is the unfolding of your situation with the school and the masks, the mask situation. If your children still having to wear masks, and that kind of thing. How that going?
I think last week, I can't remember what we had, where we had reached last week, but last week it was just, they were insisting that I had spoken to the principal, and she was supposed to address the situation regarding the children being treated differently, right? So all of last week there were some issues.
Right.
I don't go into all them details because it could make the story real long. But there were some issues, and it was being reported to me that they were still not being treated equally. Right? They were still being discriminated against.
Right.
Right? So every time I tried to address the situation and I tried to speak with the principal, she would say she's busy. No, I'm not saying she wasn't busy, but I wasn't able to address the situation because of issues, right? So on Friday I come to the end of my rope essentially. So I decided, listen, on Friday I'm going in and I'm going to speak directly to the teacher. I don't know what is happening between the principal and the teacher, but every time I speak to the principal, I'm already getting a resolution to the issue. She kept telling me, the children, she hopes to place them in a different class,
right,
and so on. And I have no problem with that. But what I need to find out is what's going to happen between now and when that happens, because I wasn't actually getting a deadline for when that would take place. So on Friday, I said, listen, I want to talk to the teacher directly, right? So I went into the school. I went to drop the children off before school had started, and I happened to see the principal outside. So I told her just what I told you, that I want to come to speak to the teacher. She celebrates in that kind of way. Telling me, she would probably need to speak with me with an administrator. And I'm like, listen, I don't care. I don't care who's around when I speak. I just need to speak with her directly. And I told her, listen, at 9:00, I'll be coming back. I'll come in to see the teacher. Whatever has to happen to facilitate that, facilitate it, right? That's all. So I dropped them off because this was before school had started. And as I was leaving, I saw the teacher.
Right.
But I was driving out and the teacher had just parked her car and jumped out, and I didn't feel like bothering to come out of the car now. So I said, I said 9:00. And then I'm sure if I came out and tried to speak to her at that point in time, she would have probably said, no, you can't talk to me now. You have to come during a designated time. So I said, no worries. Come back at 9:00. When I come back at 9:00, the principal said, the teacher left. I said, what? She said, teacher had an emergency. Teacher had an emergency. So I remember I saw the car.
Yeah.
So I walked back. She told me that I walked back to the car park. Yeah, the car is really not there. So I said, so is it that she'll be back at the end of the day? She said, I don't know. I don't know the nature of the emergency. I said, I feeling as if people playing games. Right?
Yeah.
So I said, well, listen.
You feel a little papi should.
Right. So I said, listen, I'll go into the class. Because right now, I think we mentioned this last week, because of some issues going on at the school, they're not being housed where they're supposed to be housed. They're being housed in a different area.
Right. So that is why did this come from the different area?
Different area
in the
afternoon because they're bringing them across to leave, right?
Yeah. So
I said, well, listen, I'm going there because I want to see what's happening for myself. Because another thing before we got to that point, she kept telling me that when she speaks to the teacher, she's hearing different reports. They are saying that they didn't. And on one of the days, my daughter went to school on her own.
Right, I remember saying that.
Right. And when I came, she was wearing a mask, and I asked her why she was wearing a mask, and she said, well, she was told she had to put it on. No, how I phrased it was that she was forced to wear the mask. But to be fair to her, my daughter, that is, what she said to me was that she was told if she wanted to sit in the front and with her friends, if she didn't want to be isolated in the back, she had to put on the mask. Right? So when the principal told me, she said, you said she was forced to put on the mask, but when I spoke to the teacher, I said, no, Azuri put on the mask on her own. So I said, listen, I'm going across there so I could, put my mind at ease and find out exactly what's going on. The principal didn't seem to be in full approval of that. But to be fair to her, she didn't stop me.
Right.
I walked across, right? When I was walking I'm just saying, I'm relaying the story as it happened, so you could make your own judgments. Now, you know how that school is when it comes to just walking in.
Right, yeah.
Right? They can't just walk in. Right? So I'm walking. Now, this place isn't the school itself, but I'm walking towards that area where the children are. And one of the teachers because what is happening is that the entire year group is in there. So all the teachers who's supposed to be teaching at the year group are all there, like, cooperating to handle the children. One of the teachers, he's walking out. So I'm walking towards the building and I'm expecting him to stop me and ask me, where you going? Or where, if you could help me or whatever, right? He just says hello and continues his way. Like, all right, that's strange. I reach now and I open the door to the room and the teacher is telling me, indicating to me to come. Not in any way looking like, who's this and what he's doing here. She doesn't seem to be like trying to work out why I'm there. She's just telling me to come. And as she gets up and she starts to approach me, she calls my two children. Right. So clearly she knows who I am. Right. And she knows that they concern me. So it seems to me like they were prepared. Oh, okay. For the visit. Now, when I went, they were seated at tables with other children around and they weren't wearing masks. Right. So the teacher went to great lengths to explain to ensure that, you see, they're not being treated any differently. Look. Yeah. And what I kept explaining to her is that, listen, I was just trying to find this out all the time. Because when the children are coming home, they're telling me one thing. And to be fair, nobody's contradicted the fact that what they said about being told to sit in the back was true. Right? No one has said that didn't happen. All they tried to claim is that the day when she was wearing the mask, they didn't force her. But the teacher, actually admitted when my daughter said to her, no, but miss, you told me if I wanted to sit with my friends, then I had to put on him. She admitted that, yes, that was the case. And I said, well, exactly, that's being treated differently. Where she sits shouldn't be a conditional issue dependent on whether she wears a mask or not. So then we went and we had this long kind of circular discussion where the teacher is insisting that, they have to look after all of the children, right? And she kept insisting that the students and their parents should have a say in whether somebody without a mask is allowed to sit next to them. And I kept indicating to her that I don't think that that's true. Right. I do not think that, because I kept using the example. So should a parent call the school and say, listen, I don't want my child sitting next to an African or an East Indian, right? I feel it's carry germs and I don't want my child sitting next to them. Or I hear that it's teeth or I hear whatever, right? Is that a request that the school would facilitate? No. They would make it clear to the school in no uncertain terms. Listen, we are diverse community here and we respect everybody's ethnicity and we uphold values of, inclusion and so on. So if you want a situation where your child only sits next to children of a certain race, and I think you might have to take your child out of the school. The school isn't going to facilitate, the child, the parent, because that's what she kept saying, the parent has a right. But the parent doesn't have the parent could ask that, but the school isn't going to facilitate that request. Yeah, because at the end of the day, the school will facilitate every request that every parent has. Exactly, precisely, right? And the school definitely shouldn't be facilitating a request to have a child discriminated against, right? Unnecessarily discriminated against, right? So that was the tenor or the tone of the discussion, right? So that should give you an idea of why the conversation ended up being a circular one. Because if this is the position that this person is trying to uphold, then it's only so far I could reach. Yeah. And there were some stingers that came out of the conversation. One was where I was pointing out to her that my older daughter, who also attended that school, who she knows, right? She attends, in her secondary school, they don't have that issue, right? Nobody cares whether they wear a mask or not. Nobody's treated any differently. And students walk around without masks all the time. And then she goes on to tell me, yeah, well, I know because, you know, she had a relative that used to go to the school or something like that, right? So I said, cool, right. And I said, that school hasn't turned into a morgue, right? They don't seem to be, I know she said to me. She said, they don't have air-conditioned classrooms. I paused for a second. I was like, all right, so just now, are you serious? And I said this to her. So are you seriously telling me that you feel the reason why they aren't dealing with a virus issue over there is because but you feel you would have to deal with one here is because they don't have air conditioning, because I have windows. So windows would just solve the entire thing. And she's like, yeah. To that question, I said, I asked, so why would they wear masks last term? You know, y'all should all inform the ministry that we just need windows. Just open the windows. And everybody's fine. Now, not to mention the fact that I believe there are some classrooms in that school that are air conditioned. Right? Yeah. But forget that. The point is, you're saying that, so all we need is just crack the window and all is well. It could be 30 of them inside there for 6 hours or however many hours, talking, shouting, doing
singing,
whatever. Right, but just crack the windows and all is well. And then when I pointed out to her that my son was saying, listen, but this doesn't make any sense, because the same students are encouraged to have lunch in that very same enclosed room, right? And obviously they can't have lunch eating through masks, right? So essentially for the lunch hour, all of them are in that room without masks. And she said, yeah, but for how long?
Right, because
it takes an hour, apparently, or 10 hours or 6 hours. They have to be sitting down next to each other for the entire day without the mask for it to spread. So the hour that they're sitting in the room there, it won't, because that's how COVID works.
Yeah.
Right?
You might tell you, have a lunchtime, COVID, have a lunchtime too. So it'd be like, we going on lunch, we will walk outside, or they could go ahead and eat and then we'll come back in. And
this is my point, and this is the point I wanted to, well, let me just complete, right? So after all that long circular conversation, I just said to her, listen, so is it that they're not going to be treated unfairly? That what is happening here is how it's going to take, even when their teacher comes back. She said, well, I can't say what will happen when their teacher comes back, but this is how it is right now, and this is how, as far as she's concerned, it's going to continue being. So I was like, all right, fine, cool. Because I had spoken to, I don't want to say his name,
right?
But you know his name. Well, my brethren who used to come on to the show when I was right on the radio show, right? And you know what how he's involved. So he started to put me onto people who would, who advise him on how to go forward, right? So I said, well, listen, if that is the case, I don't need to go any further, because this is all I wanted. I just want them to be treated fairly. Now, I kept feeling like that was a papi show for me on that day.
Everything was set up.
Everything was exactly. They knew I was coming back and said, hey, listen, when he come back, make sure and don't hide your end.
And Missy, well, you see me, I know go and deal it here. Yeah. Right?
So she bust up.
Yeah. Right. Emergency. This is what it seemed like. We didn't say that, but exactly.
But it just seems very fishy, and that's what it appeared to be. So it all was kind of banking on what would happen yesterday. Well, if the teacher would return,
right,
and then if she returned, if things would be handled in the same way. And it appears that is the case. So for now, it seems like the battle has been won. Sense has prevailed, and they are going to school. Well, today my son was sent home because he was sneezing incessantly. But he did. He does tend to have sneezing fits, and this is he's going to be missing school at least one. Because remember, I told you last week there was one day he didn't. Only my daughter went to school. It's because the same thing. So because they are going to have to act like if every time a child sneezes is because he's carrying some virus, he's going to miss school. He's going to miss a lot of school because he has these sneezing fits a lot. No, understand.
Some sinus or something.
Yeah. And when there's excess dust in the air, And listen, I kind of understand that, and this is actually bringing me back to what I wanted to say last week that I forgot to say. I actually don't blame them. I don't blame them. Now, in many instances, they are acting foolishly, right? They're engaging in silly behavior. But I still don't blame them.
You don't blame them wholly and solely.
Yes. Or I don't...
because I still think that everybody has the opportunity to do some sort of research other than what is fed to you. And I would believe that a teacher, right? Somebody who wants to be an educator.
Yes, who not wants to be, is an educator.
Is an educator. But God, I think that's going far. Okay, the whole portfolio, the job of an educator.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I would hope that they would be more inclined to do a little more research, take a little bit, understand this a bit better.
Well, I mean, this is why the policy shouldn't be in their hands, because they're not experts.
Yeah.
So because everybody goes say, well, you do your independent research, but what you research? You know what I mean? You go in by some weird websites and some conspiracy theorists. So we're not allowing you to do your own research, which is the point I kept trying to make to her. Listen, we may have different ideas about what this is, but the ministry, they guide. Right? Because you aren't an expert, I am not an expert.
Well, but in the stance that they're taking now, seems like expert stance. If you understand what I'm saying.
And that's my point. And that's why I wanted to, even when I was talking to her, I didn't want to go down the road of discussing the virus and your views and my views, because that is where it's end up in a circular conversation, because you believe what you believe, and to some extent facts ain't changing your mind. And, you know what I mean? But that's why you should have no business amending the ministry's policy. That's why the ministry outlined the policy and you just act accordingly. Right. You don't
and if you don't like it, leave the workers.
yes.
Right?
Or address it the way that you would address any other issue you're having with the ministry or the ministry or any other administrative body that governs you. You have your means to address the issue. Address it that way. Say, listen, unless the workplace is made safer, I'm not coming to work. Or however you have to operate, right? Lobby your union to lobby the ministry or pressure the ministry to change the policy. But what keeps upsetting me is that when the policy was what it was last term, I had to abide by it. I couldn't quarrel. I said that to the principal, I think once or twice. You didn't see me a day last term. I didn't come to quarrel. Why are my children went? Because that was the policy. Now the policy, the mandate has been dropped, but I still have to. I still have to live with you enforcing this policy. I don't understand why when it was when the rule was in your favor, I had to follow, but now the rule isn't in your favor. I still have to follow. I don't get it. But so you're right. They can't do their own research, and also they could exercise a little bit of forbearance, and because, as I say, a lot of this is not fear of no virus. This is just I say so you should just follow, and there's a lot of kind of ego thing, you know what I mean? If we did the policy and everybody else has followed, who's you? You know what I mean? Because every other child that comes, well, because I see like the tiny tots. There's less some of the tiny tots coming, I guess, because they're under the age that were ever advised to wear masks, right? But so some of the tiny tots is coming, but everybody else, that's not the point of the thing. Who's you? Why you are the only one, and why you feel you could, So, but the reason why I don't rest the bulk of the blame on their shoulders is because they could only behave in that way because we have, in my view, incompetent people, incompetent public officials providing foolish guidance. Because let's take it from the perspective of even the dropping of the mask mandate at schools. I don't know if you read the report, but there was a report done that was published in the newspapers on the day that the ministry made the announcement that the mask mandate was going to be dropped, right? And how it was quoted. They quoted an official from the Ministry of Education, and the quote was, and I think it was exactly this: masks are necessary, but no longer mandatory. Right. What does that mean now, though? How can that be translated into a policy? Because it is one thing to say people can wear masks if they like, but they're no longer mandatory. That's easy for me to understand and easy for you to understand. Or they could even say, we still advise that people wear masks, but it is no longer mandatory. That is easy for you to understand and me to understand, right? But what does the term masks are still necessary, but not mandatory? How can you and I now hear that and interpret a policy from that? You can't.
Right, but no.
Spoiler alert, you can't.
No. The thing is, you can't according to who you are. Let me tell you why I say that. Because for the person who is being pressured to wear the mask, right? That would be like, doesn't make sense. Yeah. But the person who want to tell somebody to wear the mask,
right,
they will interpret that as, you see, it's not mandatory, but it's necessary.
Right.
So, you understand what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, it still
don't make sense. Okay,
and it still doesn't really mean you can formulate a policy from it. But what it does is it gives everybody cover. And that's what it's meant to do. That's why I say it is not their fault. That statement is worded in that way. They are posturing themselves in this way because they want to give themselves cover. This is all about, these people aren't making policies guided by science. They're making political decisions. Everybody is playing this game of CYA. Well, I want to tell you could go ahead, but I don't want you to blame me if people get reckless and thing go up. You know what I'm saying? So if you just simply say, well, and if you speak plainly and say, well, listen, at this stage of the pandemic, we may be out of the public health emergency stage, and now we are at the stage where we are leaving it up to citizens to determine what levels of risk they want to, and to some extent they've said that, but then they will say that today and then come back tomorrow and have a meeting or a press conference with 3 doctors on the thing, sitting 6 million miles apart, all with mask on their face, telling you, well, if you're in AC, then you have to wear a mask. What does that mean? What is that? But so then how can I see people, journalists in that same room that are talking to you, not wearing masks? So so the average individual now who's trying to understand, what am I dealing with? Is this, how am I to function in the society now? They're not being guided properly because all these idiots are there saying one thing, doing another, because all they want to do, all they're interested in doing is not being blamed. So the other day we spoke about the press conference I was listening to with Terence Alson and the lady. And he kept saying, he's still seeing, all these events where people are going and they're not wearing masks. That's not wise behavior. And, even if you're young and you're healthy, you may think you're young and you're healthy, but then you go to these events and you catch the virus and then you go home and you expose your COVID-19 status to your elderly parent. So, in other words, the government is giving you the freedom. The same government, the same state, they're granting party licenses every week, letting people free up. But then he is essentially telling you, I know we're telling you to go, we can do it, but don't do it.
But then chastise you for doing it. Yeah.
So we are giving you the freedoms and then demonizing you for, but...
That's true Caribbean parent.
Again, how can that translate into policy? That can't translate into policy. All that is I don't want you blame me because I keep telling you take it serious. You know what I mean? I don't want it to ever be said that I was the one who told her to behave bad. That's all he cares about. Because on one hand, the same state is trying to wants to pat itself on the shoulder for reopening the economy. Say in the entertainment industry, you all could go back. We can now reopen the entertainment industry. We don't have any safe zones, any nothing. So the businesses and that industry, that whole area of commerce can now rebuild itself. But then you have a health minister going out telling people, essentially, if they go to them thing, they're killing granny.
Yeah.
So what is really going on? What is the country really to make of that?
And of course, that is just one. I mean, that's a smaller aspect of it, but that is still a significant amount of misinformation.
Yeah.
Because how many grannies are dying? We just see a few of these events that they have had, in the most recent times, FOC and these events, we have seen something like, I think they say FOC had a couple thousand, 11,000 people, right? So we're looking at 11,000 people. And the other events, but let me just say, it's the same set of people partying. So let me just say, like, capital 20,000, right?
Yeah.
20,000 people going to these events.
Yeah.
So these 20,000 people would have gone home. These 20,000 people would have gone to work. They would have gone in different places and possibly spread this thing all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And let me just say, out of the 20,000, I mean, we could check the R rate and whatever, but we didn't even get a while, right? We ain't gonna confuse nobody yet tonight.
Yeah.
Simple. But let me just say, in these 20,000 people, interact with 2 people each. So we're now looking at about 60,000 people. The first 20, and then the 40,000 from the 2 people they interact with. And these 60,000 people went home to grannies, right?
Yeah.
How much people died within the last 2 months?
Well, I mean, but even that, you don't know how many of them COVID-19 played a crucial role in
right.
Because as the health authorities themselves have mentioned, they're incidental COVID deaths, meaning that the people just happened to test positive for COVID
while they were fighting with something else.
Which is, highly possible in the age of Omicron. Which spreads
but let me get wild. People with COVID-related deaths in the last 2 months or let me say 2 months.
Well, I mean,
60,000 grannies probably let me say 40,000 grannies got interacted with.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Did we see in the last 2 months, let me say 4,000? Let me say 4,000, 10%.
Yeah.
400 for 1%?
Well, 4,000 would have been 10%. It was 40,000.
Well, 40,000. Yeah. No, but that's it. Bring it back down to 40,000. Right? 20,000 people living by themselves. They don't see their granny. They act real responsible, and they didn't go and check granny. They didn't go by granny this Sunday for 2 weeks for Sunday lunch. 20,000 people.
Right. And the only place they could catch it is in FOC.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. The implication being from your statement is that COVID does only come for you when you're being wild.
Yeah.
Which is, remember, I keep telling you, these are some of the idiotic ideas that circulate in people's brains. They wouldn't admit it, but there is that superstition, that kind of thing. Well, I could go and check my uncle and my cousin and go to a family line because that's cool. But if I go to a Zest, that when COVID will come from it, because that's the kind of foolishness we think.
So
but yeah.
The thing is, so we ain't even looking at. I don't think we are 40. I don't even think we are 40 in the 2 months.
I can't remember.
Right.
I think last month there was 16. I think it was 28. Sorry, 28 deaths. I think it was 28
so
deaths
possibly 40. Right. So that is what 0.01%. Nah, then clearly not every granny and people. So it's misinformation.
So and because the thing is, you're not putting anything into context, right? And that's why they're very, in my opinion, they're very afraid to go into very great detail about these deaths, because I think if they went into great detail and started to mention, this was end-stage cancer, and this was leukemia, and this was, this person was had severe diabetes and whatever. Then people would begin to get the idea, okay, so this is not something the average person needs to be afraid of anymore. And they don't want that, right? So that's why they don't provide the context. But even forgetting that now, though, my question is always, what am I supposed to do with that information? So you're frightened me, right? Right? You're frightened me. So what am I supposed to do? So I'm a young person, I'm 21. And I'm at that age where, I want to enjoy my life. These are years that I will never get back.
Let me say you didn't go to university. You finished school in sixth form at 19.
Yeah.
Last 2 years, you ain't get a party properly.
Yes.
You understand? You start to work. You have a little money in your pocket. I want to come out now.
And not just party. You want to socialize. You want to live the life that a young person should have a right to live. So what are you telling that young person is supposed to stay in a shelf till what? Till COVID disappear? When is that going to be? When is that going to be? Do you have some information there, dear Mr. Dayal Singh? You have...
Biden say done.
Well, we'll come to that just now. But do you have some information that gives you a clue that by 2023 it's going to disappear? So all we need to do now is just continue, because every time he speaks, I am asking people, it may be waning, but still be vigilant. Be vigilant for when? Till when? Till forever? What is the end point? Where is the end game here?
Well, then again, I think to be very fair to him and the government, not just this party, but all parties, I think they like to have Chinese vigilant. I think, like with the crime situation, hey, always be on all their toes, dog. In this country, you're driving on the road, be vigilant for them potholes, nigga. Be vigilant for them potholes, man. I think that's what it is. They like Trinidadians on their toes. All the time.
You know what I mean? And nobody stops and says, is this... First of all, is being on edge helping? Is it making any difference? Is either we're going back to normal life or we're not, right? Or either if is partying safe? Yes. Well, then shut up. It's not safe? Well, ban it. And let me move on. right? Don't play this game where, well, all they could party, but don't party. Go ahead and party, you know. But don't, or go to FOC and other Juve fests with a mask on. Wear in a well-fitting N95 mask and don't take it off unless you're sipping you're punching. You understand what I'm saying? And jam and wine with your mask. Of course, you can't be expecting that. So what are you real? And that's what I'm saying. That's why the citizenry can't get into a gear to understand what they're dealing with. And you still have to deal with this kind of shippiness with people, you know, who feel, because again, I would love for any one of those clowns who's come up on that platform during any one of those press conferences from the Ministry of Health or otherwise to explain to me what is the point of a nationwide, of advising the nation to continue engaging in an avoidance strategy. What is the point of that? Why is that? Are you making that decision to not just advise people who are immunocompromised or severely, you know what I mean? You are essentially still telling the nation to engage in an avoidance strategy. Why? What is to be gained from that? We are not at a point where the rate of spread is challenging or threatening the healthcare system, which is what the avoidance strategy was meant to do before. Unless you can present me with information that says, well, no, we have good reason to believe that by 2023, this virus will be no more. Or it will mutate into a form that don't kill nobody. Because if COVID-19, if it seems to me like as long as people die from COVID-19, you are going to insist that people wear masks.
Right. And I mean, as I say, but I think we spend it up in mud, to be honest, because like, all right, around the hour, this is the next thing, but you know, they have this next figure that is given now as a check-in, like the regular deaths now, that is have from regular things.
You mean the excess deaths?
The excess deaths.
Yeah. All cause mortality.
Yeah. Because you're not going to put that information. You're not going to put any kind of information.
Yeah, so we could put it into context.
So we could put things in the context.
Yeah.
And so right now, really and truly, I mean, not that we spinning, because I just talk about generally now.
Yeah.
Right? Because they play in their games and their politics. And unfortunately, a lot of Trinidadians are cognitive misers. They do intend to press anything. They do intend to
think hard
about anything.
Or, you know,
right? I mean, and I'm ridiculing anybody, but I'm just saying, up to today, I saw an old man driving in a vehicle by himself with his windows up with a mask on. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I mean, some people they've just grown very accustomed to wearing.
Well, right. So that's I'm not ridiculing anybody.
And to be fair, that probably is the best way to do it in terms of not taking it off.
Right.
Yeah, because constantly touching it is not a wise thing to do. So if you're going to wear the mask, then you should wear it properly and try your best not to touch it.
Right. So the thing is, people who need to do what they're doing what they have to do. Right? If you think you need to wear a mask, you wear a mask. And I mean, people operating all it back down as the government and Ministry of Health and all it back down, see all that to say, put the information out in terms of, listen, if you want to, you do it. And you could also remind, listen, if a store want, they could ask that of people who want to patronize the store. And let we all figure it out from there now.
No, I think, but that's the problem. That is the problem. That's what they're doing. They see, and that's what this has always been. All right, the policy comes in response to how frightened we are. And the Prime Minister said that, again, I'll keep saying, that's not conjecture, because the Prime Minister said he considered, well, at that point in time, he was only considering dropping the public-wide mask mandate because people wasn't frightened no more. So, was the policy in place because there was a scientific reason behind it? No, it was in place because he felt people frightened, so we should respond. And so we have to look like we're taking it seriously, so we're going to impose a mask mandate. But then when he went to Guyana, he didn't wear a mask, but in a small aircraft with other people. The president went to the UK the other day to pay respects to the Queen. Was in a large gathering, no mask, right? So, what are we talking? What is happening here? Do we really believe that? And that's the other thing too, because when they want you to wear the mask, right? They acted as if the mask was a force field. So you still hear people say shipping is like my sister tested positive that day, right? And she said, when people ask, where you got it? It must have been somewhere you went without your mask.
Mm-hmm.
When I was talking to the same teacher and I pointed out, my children have a cousin who attends the same school in the very same class. He didn't attend school all of last week because he was ill. Flu-like symptoms. It wasn't COVID, but flu-like symptoms all of last week. The only place he went besides home was school. So it's reasonable to surmise that he caught it at school. He caught it. He wears his mask all the time in class.
Right there.
He religiously wears his mask. My twins, who interact with him all the time, they weren't sick. Now, as Simba didn't go to school for one day, but that's because, as I say, he used to have sneezing fits every week. But Azuri was fine. And I pointed that out to her. It's like, so do you see the folly of what you're, you know what I mean? He came to school and he still caught something, although you insisted he wore a mask. And he got symptomatic. And it's quite likely that the twins caught it too. They just didn't get symptomatic at the time. Right? Wherever he caught, maybe they had dealt with that before, and so they didn't. I don't know. But the point is, he caught something. They didn't. You know what she said to me? Yes, it happens. It happens. Sometimes people do get it when they're wearing the mask. What do you mean sometimes? Why because in her brain, she thinks the mask works like a force field, right? You understand? So you put this thing on, and you're good to go. You could do whatever. You could engage in all normal activities. Just put this thing on your face, and you'll be fine. But and no one is, because why do they feel so? Because when they were trying to drill it in your head to wear it, all of a sudden, remember, before they decided that was the thing to do, there were all sorts of questions about whether wearing masks were good, bad, indifferent. Whether it might be counterproductive. But then one day, it just flipped on a dime. It went from, well, we're not sure how well masks work to, well, if you don't want to wear a mask, no, you're dunce. You're a dummy. The Minister of Health essentially said that at one point in time, it could be counterproductive to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Right? He said that. And then 2 weeks later, he was basically calling you an idiot for not wanting to wear one. I don't know about you, Naldo, but science don't change like that. Science don't go from, well, we wasn't sure last week to, well, this week you can't even question, or else you're a retard. What is that? That is not, again, that's not science. That's politics. That's people want you to do something, and so they're going to drown you with the propaganda to make you believe this thing works like... And so that's why people believe that that's how it operates. They think, well, once I put this paper thing on my face, or this cloth thing on my face, or this, I good forever.
And I mean, before we close off this topic, in terms of, I think it's important to say that the stance that one or two teachers might be making in that school, that stance is, really just the one or two teachers, and not necessarily stance of the entire school. Because the other day, my daughter went to school with a mask, and she's also not the opposing type now, boy. Right? And apparently mask fall along like break time, fall on the ground, and she mashed it up and whatever, and she not no mask. And she just continue throughout the day. We having to pick up and like, done with mask. Well, for a long break time, nobody didn't tell nothing. Nobody didn't say nothing.
Bro, I went to St. Joseph RC and the primary school in Corpus, connected to Corpus Christi in Diego Martin the other day. Both schools. At neither one of them did I see more than maybe 30% of the children wearing masks. Both of them. Both different primary schools. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was explaining this very situation to her. And she asked her son, I think is Rodrigo, and I can't remember now what uniform he was wearing. But I asked her, I said, so while talking to her, she's like, why are they doing that? That's awful. Why did you treat them like that? And then I was also telling her that because the teachers are behaving like that, it obviously now encourages the students to tease them, right? Because if you as a teacher are going to make them sit aside from everybody, then obviously it gives, because children looking for any reason to tease anyway, anything to make you, well, you different or you whatever. So obviously they're gonna do that. So she turned to her son and asked him, anybody tease you about wearing a mask? No. Because if the teachers don't make a big deal about it, the students wouldn't.